you hear of talking dragons or just talking animals in general, the first thing that pops into a lot of people's heads are children's books, brightly colored, complete with fables and happy endings. However, if you've ever read Wings of Fire or Warrior Cats, that is probably not the case for you. You imagine wars, torture, death, etc. But even though you know these aren't kids' books, it's hard to convince people of that. That's why here I've decided to list my top 10 reasons why Wings of Fire is not meant for kids. And in fact, the little kids should steer far away from it. This will be in ascending order from the least bad to the worst. Before we get started, if you are new to this channel, please think about subscribing. I regularly post both Wings of Fire and Warrior Cats content, so you'll never be bored. And to my current subscribers, thank you so much for supporting me. I wouldn't have gotten here without y'all. Reason number 1, Whirlpool existing. I feel like a very big problem in the series for younger readers might be Whirlpool. If you were young the first time you read Wings of Fire, then you understood he was horrible. He was slimy and evil. He tried to kidnap and possibly kill Tsunami so her sister could take the throne. Whirlpool was also a snitch, who loved to suck up to authority, that being Coral. But as you grow up, you just realize how even more terrible he was. He preyed on the innocent in many ways. He tried to make an enemy ruin her soul so she would submit to his advances. And she was only a year or two old at that point, whilst he had to be over 10. Ew. He also urged her to kill her own mother, even giving her a weapon to do so with. Despite those advances on an enemy, he moved away from her the second he found an easier target, that being her newly born sister. Fortunately, an enemy was able to kill him in a pretty brutal death scene, where he fell into a pool of electric eels and was electrocuted to death. Number 2, Scavenger Death. This is another minor one, but I feel like it should be included. Scavenger death is a relatively common thing in the books, which is pretty much human death. It is pretty desensitized to the dragons, which may be disturbing to small children. Seeing humans die a lot in the books may be a tiny bit disheartening, so I feel like Mike Combs turned it down a bit in the graphic novels. If he ever tackles Darkstalker, I wonder what he will do then, as Scavenger Death is a major plot point as it ends up triggering a vision from Clearsight, that being the vision that got her installed in the palace as a seer. Number 3, Gil's final months. Gil, before his death, was tortured by restriction to water. While that is bad for any dragon, Gil is a sea wing, and as the name suggests, they need more water than any other dragon. He is dehydrated so bad that his eyes are red and his gills are swollen from the lack of water. Tsunami kills him, and it is revealed in the next book that she was his child, adding another layer of effed upness to an already gruesome death. Number 4, the prologue. I feel like a major test for whether Wings of Fire is right for you has to be the prologue. In the prologue, Tui holds no punches and lets you experience a taste of the violence the world has to offer. In the passage, we experience not 1, but 2 deaths. The first one is Heater. I think I pronounced that right. Thank you all the comments who told me how to say it right in the last video I included him in. Not only is he killed, but beforehand he is interrogated and even tortured by having burning chains wrapped around his snout, so he could not use frost breath. Before they get around to killing him, they kill the egg that he was carrying, and then they kill him, violently throwing him off from the top of the cliff. Any parent who thought Timmy would be interested in a series with the little dragons would likely change their mind when confronted with that scene while reading it in stores. Or not, my mom let me read The Hunger Games when I was 9. Number 5, suicide. A surprisingly common plot point in the Wings of Fire universe is suicide. I can think of 2 dragons who committed suicide off of the top of my head. Actually, 3. The first one is the Sandwing, who instead of fighting peril, charged into her and burned themselves alive. What a horrific death. The second one is one that pulls on everyone's heartstrings, and that is Freedom. Freedom had never even experienced life, as she was part of a semi-hive mind and abused by one of its members. While they were able to kill that member, Freedom realized that she would be alone and unable to do anything for eternity if she kept on living the way she did, and asked someone to kill her, committing suicide by proxy. While both suicides were to get out of a worse situation or to ease the pain they were in, suicide is still a very rough subject, with the rate of suicides per death going up every year. This is a subject where it's best to let parents handle the talking before children are introduced to something they don't understand. It's even worse when the suicide is forced. You all likely knew this had to be on the list. How could I not list one of the most gruesome deaths in the entire series? Arctic's death is preluded by him betraying the Nightwings. He enchants Whiteout to be obsessed with Icewings and more quote-unquote normal. However, Darkstalker finds out, and in a twist of fate, now Arctic is the one enchanted to follow someone else's will. Darkstalker has the entire tribe gather for what he's about to do. He then has a live interrogation of his father. Then, at the end, Darkstalker, Arctic's own son, then tells him to rip out his own tongue and then his heart. That's incredibly brutal. Arctic's death is perhaps one of my favorite scenes to see animated. Everyone has a different take on it, and a different perspective that they draw the blood. I can't wait to see what Mike Holmes does in the graphic novels for Darkstalker. Number 6. Darkstalker making clear sight. The previous ones have been mainly focused around death and blood and violence, but this one is more psychologically messed up. Darkstalker is just awoken after a few thousand years of being gone. Every dragon he knows is dead. He decides to recreate one of those dragons, his girlfriend Clearsight. The only problem is she is one of the reasons he was asleep for so long, so she isn't cooperative. Clearsight keeps on telling him what he is doing is wrong, but Darkstalker can't listen to her, can't bear to hear the truth from anyone, much less someone he loves, and so he keeps on modifying her until she's only a shell, and then he starts crying out of guilt. Though this instance of Animus created dragons is horrifying, I don't think it beats what is next on the list. Number 7. Every single Jerboa. Jerboa was a fair Animus. She wanted what was best for her tribe, and so she enchanted the Eye of Onyx to find the best queen, not the one with the purest royal bloodline. However, she was afraid of the consequences and she fled into the desert. She found herself getting lonely, and so she made Jerboa too. It is unknown what happened to her. Tui said that she would rather leave it to the reader's imagination, and given what I know about my imagination, it is probably much darker than what she had intended. She then made Jerboa 3 and enchanted her to be whatever she wanted her to be. However, Jerboa 3, or Boa, found out about it and killed her own mother. Before Jerboa died, she enchanted it so that whenever Boa enchanted something, then she would lose part of herself. It's a messed up situation all around. I have to feel really bad for all 3 of them. Jerboa 1, you initially feel sympathetic towards, because she wants to change, she wants to be different, and she thinks, oh, it's just one enchantment. However, then she spirals down the rabbit hole, and she begins abusing her children, manipulating them, changing them to be other dragons, and by the end, you look at her, and it's hard to believe she had any good intentions in the first place. Number 8. Rainwing Experimentation. In the 3rd book of Wings of Fire, The Hidden Kingdom, we are introduced to the Rainwing Kingdom. Everything seems perfect, and they are living in paradise. However, this is shown to be a false sense of security. Dragons are being kidnapped, and no one cares nor knows where they end up. Glory, the protagonist of the book, is different, and she learns what has happened to the kidnapped dragons by getting kidnapped herself. Turns out the Nightwings were experimenting on the Rainwings, specifically their venom so they could devise countermeasures in case they ever decide to invade the rainforest, and the Rainwings tried to defend it. According to Mangrove, there were at least 12 dragons who'd been kidnapped in the past year. There could have been more than that in the previous years, but no one had really cared about them. 2 out of that 12 minimum are mentioned to have returned alive. That 10 or more other dragons likely died due to poor conditions in the Nightwing volcano and a lack of food and water. While the end stage of the Nightwing plan was never accomplished and genocide never occurred in the rainforest, it did happen in the 2 tribes, which we will now discuss. Number 9. Icewing Genocide. The cherry onto this entire cake has to be the attempted extermination of the Icewing tribe. It is horrific, it affects many dragons, and it is not very child-friendly. Darkstalker first tries to exterminate the Icewings in his Legends novel, Darkstalker. He proposes this to the queen, however is shut down by his girlfriend Clearsight. Instead, they make an insta-kill barrier for Icewings around their kingdom. Darkstalker also takes it upon himself to enchant a dagger to murder Icewings and leave cryptic messages next to their bodies. Darkstalker is buried on our mountain for a few thousand years, and when he emerges, he is still out for blood despite no dragon being related to his anger being alive besides himself. He enchants a plague to get rid of them and manages to kill the Icewing's queen and several others before the plague is cooled by a counter enchantment. While I was exposed to a genocide from a young age, being Jewish, this may be one of those conversations that people would like to have with their own children before reading this story. Number 10. The last one is Leafwing Genocide. While the Icewings were the victims of genocide, they weren't the only ones. The Leafwings were also the victims of genocide. The Leafwings shared their continent, Pantala, with the Hivewings and Silkwings. The Hivewings were descended from the prophet Clearsight and used her book to guide their actions. One day, the dragon with the book lied to everyone and said that the other tribes needed to submit to them. The Silkwings did so, but the Leafwings did not, and they striked up a war against the other 2 tribes. They lost the war and had their numbers drastically reduced. They were evicted from their lands and forced to live in the dangerous poison jungle. And even after decades, they had not adapted to that environment and lost dragonets every year. Their history was also erased from the other tribes, and they were demonized. all symbols of their culture but are also banned. I rank this genocide higher than the Iceman one because it feels more realistic to me. It is a relatively common thing in real life for people to use their religions to justify genocides and the erasure of entire cultures. So those are all the reasons why Wings of Fire is not for children, and you should rethink before giving little Timmy it. I'd recommend these books for 11 up. I'm sorry if the length of this video is weird. I just got back from vacation and I'm trying a new style of scripting. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. I make Wings of Fire and Warrior Cats videos pretty often, and your support would mean a lot to me. And to those who have already subscribed, thank you for your continued support, and we have gone here without y'all. Peace out.